what has been claimed in various written accounts or what has been presented as historical fact. Communism is not a recent construct that can be attributed exclusively to a group of modern-day scholars such as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels.
The truth that has not been told is that communist ideology is as old as mankind. Moreover, it has been observed that even the symbols of power or divine authority that are used in communist countries or red states, such as the symbol of crossed hammer and sickle, have ancient origins. These symbols were, for instance, used in ancient Egypt and tribal Africa. The symbol of crossed hammer and sickle is mainly used to represent the divine power that is created when there is a union between the feminine and masculine elements within the divinity itself. There are other ancient symbols that have the same alchemical meaning as the symbol of crossed hammer and sickle. They include the symbols of crossed club and spear, or two crossed spears, that were also used in ancient tribal Africa, Egypt and Nubia. In ancient Egypt particularly, the pharaohs also employed the symbol of crossed crook and flail to convey the same meaning during different time periods. It can therefore be argued, based on the available evidence, that modern-day communist countries have adopted many aspects of governance that are known to have existed in both ancient Egypt and Nubia. Just to reiterate, the evidence can be found in shared symbols, artifacts, as well as ideology. It is worth noting that the notion of communism is very widespread than many people can imagine, and is therefore not confined to just a few countries like China, Cuba, and North Korea. One could argue that traces or elements of communism can be found in nearly all governments across the globe, including those that identify as democratic. Indeed, the ideology of communism stems from human nature itself that is sometimes tainted by dark traits like dishonesty, hypocrisy, selfishness, deception, etc. Some of the main drivers of communist or authoritarian tendencies, for instance, among members of the elite, includes the desire to dominate and control others, having the power to determine the destiny of the majority, being in a position where it is easier to exert pressure or manipulate others, and finally obtaining favorable treatment owing to one's position as a member of an exclusive club. While some people seek self-actualization by contributing to the society and generally by being selfless, There are those that seek greatness by engaging in acts of selfishness, which among other things ensures that they have a limitless access to important resources that others in the majority do not have access to. It is well known that leaders with authoritarian tendencies can sometimes abuse the privileges that they have, such as access to state resources, to achieve mainly two goals, which are increasing their power as well as increasing their wealth. For instance, despotic leaders are known to purchase loyalty through rewards. It is also quite common to find despotic or authoritarian rulers that have a tendency of devaluing or diminishing the status of those that they seek to dominate so that they can feel even more exalted. Communists are, for instance, known to resent those that are in the middle income class that they see as a threat. Motivated by the desire to acquire absolute and unchallenged power, despots have historically gone to great lengths, which includes making false claims that they are either one with the divinity or that they represent the gods here on earth. In ancient times, some rulers, including the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, actually declared themselves gods. The events in recent years, such as the increasing levels of authoritarianism in governments across the world, only seem to suggest that history is slowly repeating itself. It has been observed that those in positions of power are not only employing coercion or violence to achieve this dark end, but also economic hardship and restrictive actions that in the long run may lead to loss of personal autonomy. Even governments in countries that have had very strong democratic institutions that have lasted many decades and endured many difficult challenges over the years, are increasingly yielding to the temptations of absolute power. In situations where the citizenry largely relies on the government for survival, such as in wealthy countries with generous welfare systems, majority of the population is often in favor of more government involvement in the private lives. Some concerned observers have even coined the term big government in reference to governments that are pervasive and intrusive. Those that do not recognize personal space or personal boundaries. The second reason why leaders are finding it easy to grab more power is the fact that masses are often very receptive to information from the so-called official sources. It is important to clarify that people fall for false information or propaganda mainly because they fail to critically analyze the content they are consuming regardless of the source. In essence, the gradual power grab has been enabled by absence of critical thinking and the willingness to question the so-called official narrative. The strategy of faking divinity for the sake of unquestioned and unregulated power was successfully employed in ancient Egypt, where pharaohs were treated as gods in flesh. For instance, Pharaohs were seen as deity Horus in life and Osiris in death. It can be argued that even in modern times, there are despotic leaders or rulers that have applied this same old strategy with success, notably the Kim family of North Korea, which is also known as the Hermit Kingdom. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs enjoyed absolute power in which their authority was never challenged because they associated themselves with the divinity. For instance, King Tutankhamun and Amenhotep IV managed to convince the masses that they were the earthly representatives of Amun-Ra, or the sun god. Other pharaohs like Menkaure also created the same impression by appearing with deities like the cow goddess Hathor in the ancient Egyptian religious art.
It can be argued that the pharaohs made themselves divine for two reasons, which are mind control of the masses as well as extraction of unwavering devotion from the citizenry.
The pharaohs also labeled themselves as gods because it gave them a justification for their hold on to power till death. Furthermore, an association with the divinity enabled pharaohs to exert influence even after death. It may seem that they had strong belief in their own maxim, once a pharaoh, forever a pharaoh. In the modern world, the Kim family of North Korea have managed to gain and enjoy absolute power by, among other things, associating themselves with the divine powers. They have also sought to be directly linked to the Korean religious mythology. The Korean religious mythology touches on, among other things, key divine functions such as the creation and even the origin of the Korean race. It is believed that these divine activities mostly took place on Mount Paektu, that is considered sacred by all Koreans. Like the ancient Egyptians' pharaohs or rulers, the North Korean leaders have also erected several monuments across the capital city of North Korea, which is Pyongyang. These monuments are aimed at reminding the citizens about the authority of the state, particularly their absolute power that is ever present in all facets of life within the North Korean society. This power is mainly concentrated around the supreme leader.
Some of the prominent monuments that can be found in Pyongyang include the Juche Tower, Monument to the Party Founding, Arch of Triumph, Monsu Hill Grand Monument, Monument to National Reunification, among others. Indeed, some of these monuments have now become something like religious shrines. Actions that have been taken by the rulers of North Korea aimed at projecting power are similar to those carried out by the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. It has been observed that some of the grand monuments erected in Pyongyang by the Kim family closely resemble the structures that were erected in ancient Egypt. A good example is the mausoleum of god King Dangun in Pyongyang.
Dangun was the legendary founder and god king of Gojoseon, the first Korean kingdom, around present-day Liaoning province in northeast China and the northern part of the Korean peninsula. According to the Korean mythology, he is the grandson of heaven and son of a bear. It is widely known that he founded the kingdom of Gojoseon around 2333 BC. His mausoleum has been built in the form of step pyramid that is similar to the step pyramid of King Joseon of ancient Egypt. During the Third Dynasty around 2670 BC, King Joseon had the step pyramid built to serve as his eternal home after accumulating enough wealth and prestige. This step pyramid that was to be constructed to honor Pharaoh Joseon was then designed by the Vizier Imhotep between 2667 and 2600 BC. At the time of its completion, the step pyramid became the tallest structure and a very popular tourist attraction, just like it is today. Even though the step pyramid was designed primarily as Joseon's final resting place, the splendor that surrounded the complex and great height of the pyramid were intended to honor not only Joseon but Egypt itself and the prosperity of the land under his reign, yet this prosperity to a large extent mainly benefited a few people in the ruling class. It is very likely that the masses or the workers whose efforts created this prosperity were often left out or reduced to cheerleaders. Other step pyramids built in modern times include the Mausoleum of Vladimir Lenin, the former ruler of what used to be the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics (USSR). This mausoleum is situated in the Red Square of Moscow. Countries that constituted USSR include the present-day Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Georgia, Kazakhstan, among several others. The second mausoleum constructed by the government of North Korea to house the remains of the departed former rulers who so far are all members of Kim family is called the Kumsusan Memorial Palace of the Sun. When observed closely, Kumsusan Memorial Palace also seems to be a contemporary version of the step pyramid. Just like the step pyramid of King Joseon, the Kumsusan Memorial Palace of the Sun or Mausoleum of Kumsusan is also considered as a spectacle for attracting tourists apart from its main purpose of honoring and immortalizing the deceased North Korean leaders. The Kumsusan Memorial Palace, that is sometimes referred to as the Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il Mausoleum, is a building near the northeast corner of the city of Pyongyang that serves as the mausoleum for Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, and for his son Kim Jong-il, both posthumously designated as Eternal President and Eternal General Secretary of North Korea respectively. The palace was built in 1976 as the Kumsusan Assembly Hall and served as Kim Il-sung's official residence. Following the elder Kim's death in 1994, Kim Jong-il had the building renovated and transformed into his father's mausoleum. Inside the palace, Kim Il-sung's embalmed body lies inside a clear glass sarcophagus.
His head rests on a traditional Korean buckwheat pillow and his body is covered with the flag of the Workers' Party of Korea that bears the symbol of hammer, sickle and sometimes a spear in the middle.
Kim Jong-il is now on display in a room close to his father's remains and positioned in a very similar way. Kumsusan is the largest mausoleum in the world and the only one to house the remains of multiple people. To visit the palace you need to be dressed properly: shirts, ties and trousers for men, modest dress for women. You leave all of your belongings at the cloakroom, go through an X-ray scanner and also a blower that blows dust off. Then, your shoes will be cleaned. No pictures are allowed inside, but you can freely take pictures outside of the mausoleum in the park. Apart from constructing mausoleums to house the remains of dead rulers, it has been observed that the North Korean elite have adopted the funerary traditions of ancient Egypt, particularly those that were performed upon the death of pharaohs. For instance, they are known to embalm the bodies of the deceased rulers, which are then placed in sarcophaguses housed in mausoleums. Funerary artifacts like headrests are also used to support the head of the deceased ruler, just like in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, the practices of embalming and mummification were associated with a deity called Anubis, who was regarded as god of the dead. Anubis was often depicted as a jackal or half man, half jackal. After embalming, the body is then draped or covered with the red flag that has the symbol of crossed hammer and sickle. The crossed hammer and sickle is the same as the ancient Egyptian symbol of crossed flail and crook that was used in the pharaonic funerary rituals tied to deity Osiris, or god of the afterlife. They symbolize renewal, rebirth, resurrection and infinite regeneration. Other symbols with the same meaning that were also used in ancient Egypt and tribal Africa include the symbols of crossed double spears, crossed club and spear, crossed double swords, etc. In some societies, the ancient meaning of rebirth and resurrection is symbolized by crossing the arms of the deceased during embalming. Alternatively, the hands can also be brought together to form praying hands. For instance, ancient Egyptian deity Anubis has been depicted with praying hands in some ancient Egyptian art. Like mentioned earlier on, ancient Egyptian pharaohs like Tutankhamun took advantage of their status as gods to extract total devotion from the ordinary citizens.
For instance, the pharaohs designed the culture of ancient Egypt, particularly the religious components, to serve the purpose of manipulating the masses or ordinary people into carrying out acts of self-sacrificing to satisfy what many could have believed was a religious duty.
To appease the gods that included the pharaohs themselves, ordinary Egyptians strived to realize perfection when carrying out tasks assigned by the rulers. This is why it can be argued that the pharaohs did not own slaves, yet they managed to get a dedicated workforce comprised mainly of those willing to serve for the sake of obtaining spiritual fulfillment. Just to reiterate, rendering services to the pharaohs wholeheartedly was viewed as a form of worship or fulfilling one's religious duty.
What some have claimed were slaves in ancient Egypt are mainly prisoners, both local and foreign, that were sometimes made to carry out hard tasks as punishment for their alleged crimes. Hard labor as punishment is common in strict communist countries like North Korea.
Even in modern times, it has been observed that members of tribal groups in Africa with ancient Egyptian ancestry still engage in acts of self-sacrificing even today so as to appease ancient Egyptian deities that they still worship.
Members of many tribal groups, for instance, the tribe of Mercy found in Omo Valley of Ethiopia, are known to engage in acts of self-mutilation and skin scarification that can be considered as a form of human blood sacrifice to appease ancient deities like the sun god Amun-Ra that the Greeks later renamed Horus. The nomadic Nilotic tribe of Mercy are among several tribes that moved south after the decline of ancient Egyptian civilization before settling in Ethiopia.
It can therefore be argued that during their reign over the ancient Egyptian society, pharaohs or members of the nobility that considered themselves to be gods could also have benefited materially from the various acts of devotion by the ordinary citizens, which included free labor.
One of the biggest ironies that can be found in Marxist or communist movements is that they tend to oppress and subjugate the very people that they claim they seek to empower, like the workers, once they have captured and consolidated power.
It has been observed throughout history that Marxist revolutions tend to deliver the opposite of what was promised. To numb the pain of the masses, the leaders of Marxist movements often give false promises or engage in what can be termed as future faking. For instance, in societies that can be described as religious, the priesthood can be ordered by the rulers to engage in activities that borders propaganda and deception. This can be in the form of doctrine that emphasizes on what can be considered as some sort of unholy submissiveness or servitude that does not glorify God but man. Just like in ancient Egypt, North Korean rulers have also been able to exercise absolute power through deception based on myths and propaganda. For instance, by telling stories that points to the divine origin of the Kim family that has ruled North Korea for decades. The stories that have been told also seems to suggest that the Kim family has been ordained by the gods to rule over the entire Korea, north and south. For instance, the North Korean regime has exploited divine myths around Paektu Mountain, also called Baekdu Mountain or Changbai Mountain in Chinese, to justify their hold on to absolute power. They have taken advantage of the spiritual significance the Korean people have attached to Mount Paektu, that is also the highest mountain in Korea and northeast China. The mountain plays an important religious and cultural role in both contemporary Korean states, north and south. For instance, It is mentioned in both North and South Korean national anthems and also depicted on the national emblem of North Korea. Despite the official pronouncements that North Korea is an atheistic country, the Kim family or dynasty has been able to brainwash North Koreans for generations through mostly religious propaganda and myths. It can therefore be argued that North Korean rulers only seems to embrace religion that serves them well in controlling the masses. Over 3 generations, the Kim dynasty of North Korea has hijacked the ancient origin story of the Korean people through spurious claims regarding the godlike abilities of Kim family. These assertions have been targeted at legitimizing their hold onto power as well as brainwashing the citizens of the Hermit Kingdom into worshipping them. The Kims have long claimed to have what they call the Mount Paektu bloodline. Paektu lies in the north and is the highest, most sacred spot for all Koreans on the peninsula. It's where the spiritual founder of the first Korean kingdom, Dangon, son of a god and a bear, was said to have been born in 2333 BC. Kim Jong-un, aged 38, who is the grandson of Kim Il-sung, that founded North Korea in 1948, is often pictured astride a white horse on the snowy slopes of Mount Paektu. Over the years, several other claims have been made through official state media that are targeted at promoting the image of the ruling Kim family. For instance, KCNA, which is the official state media agency, reported that Kim Jong-un managed to conquer Mount Paektu by reaching the top of the 9,022 feet or 750 meters peak, accompanied by several military personnel. It has also been reported that Kim Jong-un started driving at the age of 3. This was done through the state propaganda machinery aimed at kids in schools. The regime has managed to effectively target young people with favorable messaging in the North Korean schooling system, especially through the syllabus. Kids have also been made to believe that Kim Jong-un is a skilled composer and an avid musician. According to the book, Kim Jong-un's Revolutionary Activities, the Korean leader raced the chief executive of a foreign yacht company and overcame great odds to clinch the race at a tender age of 9. The alleged divine birth of Kim Jong-il.
According to legend, in Kim Jong-il's official biography, Kim Jong-il, who is the father of Kim Jong-un, was born in a secret military cabin high on Mount Paektu in 1942. His birth was prophesied by a bird in the form of a swallow. On the day of his birth, there was a double rainbow over Mount Paektu and a new star in the sky. This story has been proved false because during the time period in which Kim Jong-il might have been born, his father Kim Il-sung lived in Russia, where he spent some time having been forced into exile. Therefore, the real place of birth is Russia, where he was also named Yuri Arsenovich Kim.
As if all the aforementioned lies are not enough, it has also been alleged that Kim Jong-il, the father of Kim Jong-un, started walking when he was only 3 weeks old and could talk at 8 weeks.
By co-opting the Mount Paitu story, the Kim family has been able to convince the masses that they actually do have a connection with the divinity, which not only makes them gods in flesh but also gods in the afterlife, just like the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. By co-opting the Mount Paitu story, the Kim family has been able to convince the masses that they actually do have a connection with the divinity, which not only makes them gods in flesh but also gods in the afterlife, just like the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. Since Mount Paitu is of great spiritual significance to the Korean people, any claim ties to Mount Paitu by the Kim family can be employed in conveying a message that they have a divine right to rule over the whole of Korean peninsula. As a matter of fact, some observers have argued that the Kim family, particularly the founder of North Korea Kim Il-sung, could have partly started the Korean War in 1950 because he had a false belief that his family has been ordained by the gods to preside over the entire Korean peninsula. Like other authoritarian rulers in the past and present world, the leaders of North Korea have used the twisted versions of their unofficial state religion of the sun worship to justify other controversial policies that includes the development of atom bombs as well as military campaigns against other states like South Korea. Their world-famous philosophy of Juche, or self-reliance, is also tied to the ancient religion of solar deity worship. At the core of Juche philosophy is the belief that all humans have been given the ability to determine own destiny, through choices or decisions that they make during their existence here on Earth. For instance, they can decide to be self-sufficient, or they can also make a choice to depend on the generosity of others, including those that may not keep promises or even have bad intentions. This, however, sounds like a contradiction because communist ideology does not accommodate personal autonomy or even self-sufficiency at personal level.
There are 2 questions that we thought we should let our viewers answer. The first question is this: are the stringent controls on access to information that have been put in place by the rulers of North Korea driven by the desperation to cover up past lies? The second question that is related to the first one is this: are rulers or governments across the globe still able to exercise control or impose their wishes on the masses by employing myths and propaganda even in this era of abundant digital information? Just how do they manage to get away with misinformation when there are many alternative sources of information?
Alternative sources of information. We would like to know what you think about these questions in the comments section below. Kindly share your thoughts with everyone. It should be borne in mind, however, that the North Korean government officials or rulers are not the only state authorities in the modern world that have used religion to consolidate power by faking closeness to the divinity. For instance, there are monarchs in the Middle East or Africa that still hold titles related to religion, like official guardians of the holy sites. In Europe, some heads of state have also sought moral and spiritual authority to lead or rule over others by giving themselves spiritual roles that includes being the heads of the official churches in their specific countries. These kind of religious positions and titles have for many years enabled powerful figures to acquire legitimacy or moral authority to exercise almost unchecked hold onto power.
One would then want to ask this question. If religion is beneficial to despotic rulers because it can be harnessed to extract total devotion or servitude, why then are some despots or authoritarian rulers opposed to religion or faith? Why do they take extreme actions that includes making it illegal for the masses to practice faith or religion? For instance, why is religion termed as opium of the masses by tyrants? Why do they always insist that religion should be eliminated in the society? We think that this question can be answered by considering what tyrants may regard as their main concern. In most cases, the most significant concern that they have is acquiring and maintaining unchallenged control. It can therefore be argued that authoritarians are very likely to have negative thoughts towards any existing religion that they believe challenges their quest for absolute power. It has been observed that throughout history that authoritarian rulers, or those that are referred to as Marxists in modern days, can sometimes place value on religion, but only if it can be used in furthering their agenda of acquiring absolute power. The observation that institutions under communist systems are deemed worthy or even acceptable just because they can be used to consolidate power for despotic rulers is a confirmation that hypocrisy and double standards are among what can be seen as significant hallmarks of Marxist or communist movements. Another observed characteristic of Marxist regimes is the use of absolute state powers to create stratification in the society. The end product is usually a divided society that has only two classes of masters and servants, or members of nobility, and the workers minus the middle class. The workers are often told to serve diligently, wait patiently, then hopefully they will get their rewards one day here on earth or after death. It makes sense to imagine that ordinary ancient Egyptian workers must have felt encouraged to serve the pharaohs or the self-declared gods with total dedication because they believed this was going to earn them favorable judgment and rewards in the afterlife.
It is funny how those that are lucky enough to be in the 1% expect you to delay your own gratification while they live in opulence at the expense of the majority here and now.
For instance, telling you to eat less meat and more plant-based foods to save the planet, something they never do because they love eating prime steak in exclusive joints. The air known to demand that you should reduce your consumption of the basics while increasing theirs. Selfishness and greed therefore becomes the third significant hallmark of communist or Marxist ideology, as evident in North Korea, where the supreme leader is among the very few people in that country that for a long time struggled with obesity. To conclude, It can be stated that North Korean as well as ancient Egyptian communist governance structures only became effective after the inclusion of elements of faith or religion that were in line or in agreement with the objectives of the ruling class. Faith was only included because it served the purpose of making the majority to willfully submit to the rule and the desires of the minority. Religion therefore made the task of governing very easy for the pharaohs. Ancient Egyptians became so weak following extensive campaigns of brainwashing that could have lasted decades, centuries, or even millennia. They therefore willfully submitted to all pharaohs, including pharaohs that were installed by occupying foreign nations, for instance, the Greek and the Roman pharaohs. The submissive nature of the ancient Egyptian masses to all pharaohs made it possible for the Roman rulers to govern ancient Egypt as a province without being physically present in Egypt itself. Thanks for watching. We hope to make even more interesting content in the future. See you in the next one.